So if you're here with me on the beginning prologue work guide, here for graphing, we're on slide 1 of 8 right now. And if you are watching the video, you've already clicked this. What I'd like to point out is while we're going through this, focus on this aim. How do graphs help us interpret large sets of data? That's what we want to think about by the end and throughout this topic. Okay, so graphing slide 2 of 8. We have our notes. So if you click this link, it should give you this, which I'm going to go through right now. Please make sure that you do the reading, pause, do some annotating into your notebooks, or if you're at home remotely, do a little bit of annotating, maybe in a Google Doc that you can continue to populate with your annotations for these notes. Please make sure that you pay attention to the vocabulary that's in here, especially when it comes to independent and dependent variables, what they mean, and where they go on the axes. So when we're interpreting graphs, we have different relationships. The first one here is a direct relationship. This is going to be called an inverse relationship. This is going to be called equilibrium. And this last one over here, this is cyclic. In each of these cases, we have something that's happening with the x-axis as well as the y-axis. There's a combination of one or the other, either increasing or decreasing. So let's define what that is for each of these. So let's place an x in each of these places. Let's also put a y in each of these places. Okay. Apologies for the board. So if we're looking at direct relationship, x being time is increasing to the right of this graph. Temperature on this axis is increasing as well. The data inside is showing us that as we increase in the x, we are also increasing in the y. So in this case, we have as x increases, if we continue further to increase in our x, we can see that y is also increasing. So in this case, x increases and y increases for a direct relationship. In this next instance, we can see that as x is increasing, we can see with our first line here that y starts up higher than if we go out further on an increase of the x-axis, we end up lower on the y-axis. So we end up with, for inverse relationship, an x increases and y decreases. For dynamic equilibrium, we can see that as we increase in x, the y stays the same. Okay. Hence, equilibrium stays equal. Okay. So for cyclic, x is increasing, but what we can see is that there's some variables of change over the y. So let's describe what's happening with the y. So as x increases, y increases. But eventually, as we increase in x, it decreases and repeats. Because as we increase again in the x, it increases in the y. So y, in this case, increases, then decreases, and repeats. That's the very cycle nature of a cyclic graph. We just don't see a circle here. This is representing it over an independent variable like time. So it gets unraveled, so to speak. Focus on those different graphing relationships. So be prepared to enter something into the remote learning box, or be prepared in the classroom for having your notebooks available to write on them as whiteboards. Also be prepared to do a turn and talk with the neighbor closest to you if you're in the classroom, okay? Or your remote participation comment, be prepared for that. All right, now for our guided/independent practice, we have 2 line graphs, which you'll see that this one is blank, but if you click the access point to help with this, I have already populated this graph with all the points you need to interpret the data. So pause for a moment, work on this. Make sure you fill out the form that goes along with these questions so that you are given credit for homework. And you have an opportunity to check the answer key, but that answer key is only going to be released once I've seen that we've got submissions, okay? As far as the challenge sheet, if you want some bonus points for challenges, you can click this and it will bring you to a challenge sheet of questions, and here's your submission. You can earn up to 2 CP points if you get a 75% or higher on it. Once you've completed that, come back here for your graphing checkpoint. Or if you didn't have enough time to do a challenge question or challenge sheet, come back to here and you will complete the checkpoint. So we are on slide 5 of 8. I have outlined what you need to do. Mainly, I want you to be able to answer the aim. And I also want you to give me some feedback of how you feel about this topic. Okay? 1, 2, 3, or 4. Here is the information next to it, what those numbers mean in terms of how you feel. When you click this, please make sure that you fill out every required section, your last name, your period and cohort by multiple choice, and then answering those 2 questions and submitting it. The only way that you lose points is by not completing this, okay? There's no penalty base for getting anything wrong. I just need to check in to see where everybody's at. So if we have to readdress this topic, we can do that.